You may have seen the recent press conference with Lucy Letby's new lawyer, Mark MacDonald, where he describes lead prosecution witness in the Letby trial, Dewi Evans, as having changed his mind.
Remarkably, Dr. Evans has now changed his mind on the cause of death of 3 of the babies.
The decision to hold a press conference has been criticised by some barristers and those in the legal establishment as some sort of flamboyant or unprofessional tactic. However, the idea that Mark MacDonald is the unprofessional one doesn't make complete sense to those who have been following the Letby case, as it's quite apparent Dr. Evans will do an interview with anyone who will listen. So on to the way the idea that Dr. Evans has changed his mind has been framed in the media. Due in part, I think, to the very PC way Mark MacDonald framed it at the press conference. It's often implied as if Dr. Evans is a serious professional scientist who has perhaps mulled over a flaw in the theories he presented at trial. It was first reported on the BBC, for instance, once they had asked Dr. Evans for comment about Mark MacDonald's press conference. They had refuted the idea that he changed his mind. This was later changed to he was denying that he had changed his mind, which I think is a more appropriate way of putting it. Before getting into the various quotes from Dr. Evans in the Court of Appeal, I think it's worth keeping in mind some other potential reasons for his contradictions. It may be the case that he let certain statements slip, either because he wasn't as confident as he made out in court, or because he wasn't drawing from as strong an evidence base as he was trying to make out. So looking at how the descriptions of the Lucy Letby attacks appear in the Court of Appeal reasoned decision, which can be found online. Baby C, underlined in red, air via nasogastric tube. Baby I, underlined in red again, air via nasogastric tube / air embolus. And then baby P, air via nasogastric tube. So now this is a copy of Dr. Evans' signed letters Channel 5, which is going to be sent to the Court of Appeal. Focusing on his name for a second, now looking at the part highlighted in yellow, where he contradicts the Court of Appeal document saying, quote, "None of the babies were killed as a direct result of the injection of air or fluid and air deliberately injected into their stomachs." So now, if you have seen David Davis' speech in Parliament, he urges us to compare Dr. Evans' words in this signed statement to Channel 5 to his words to the court on November 1st, which are now part of the trial transcript, which is being increasingly distributed.
I suggest you compare Evans' evidence recorded in the trial transcript of November the 1st, 2022, with his signed statement to Channel 5 on the 3rd of August 2024.
Highlighted in yellow on November 1st in the transcript, Dr. Evans says, quote, "Therefore, his collapse is consistent with the volume of air injected into his stomach. It splints the diaphragm, stops breathing. He's less than 800 grams, so that's what happens." Doing a double take on Dr. Evans' Channel 5 statement, in bold and highlighted in red, quote, "Some babies were killed by air being deliberately injected into the stomach," close quote. Evans appears to clear up the bolded part immediately below, saying, highlighted in yellow, quote, "None of the babies were killed as a direct result of the injection of air," close quote. Then looking at Dr. Evans' words on November 1st in the trial transcript, there is not a completely word-for-word contradiction, such as did kill versus didn't kill. However, he strongly implies there has been an injection of air, which has caused the baby to stop breathing. Something that's also relevant here is Lucy Letby's lawyer, Ben Myers, accuses Dr. Evans of, quote, "coming up with things here now as we go along," close quote, which I think in another phrasing is accusing him of making it up as he goes along, if that wasn't obvious. Dr. Evans responds, quote, "No, I'm coming up with clinically proven mechanisms that explain why babies collapse," close quote. I will have more to say about this clinically proven assertion in a bit, but first to go over the article which I strongly suspect pressured Dr. Evans into contradicting himself. Looking at a screenshot here, Lucy Letby, Killer or Coincidence. Underlined in red, it was published on the 9th of July 2024, fairly soon before Dr. Evans' letter to the Channel 5 documentary, which was dated 3rd of August 2024. So this is what I think provokes Dr. Evans to say, quote, "None of the babies were killed as a direct result of the injection of air," close quote. Even though it says in the Court of Appeal document, air via nasogastric tube is a mechanism of murder for 3 of the babies. Now on to Dr. Evans' response when pressured by Lucy Letby's defence barrister, Ben Myers, that he is, quote, "coming up with clinically proven mechanisms," close quote. I think this could be quite a confusing statement to the jury, as when hearing the phrase clinically proven, some may think of a finding that has occurred as a result of a clinical trial. When Dr. Evans talks of something being clinically proven, I think he is talking about things he has seen and experienced, 3 years of practical hands-on experience. Though I think it's difficult to make sense of where he would have seen any of the attack mechanisms he alleged Letby carried out. So next, to look at some of the other quotes in the media Dr. Evans has given about the air in the stomach theory. Looking at this article in the Daily Mail, "It's time for this Lucy Letby is innocent madness to stop," by journalist Liz Hull. In the article, she says Dr. Evans admitted to me that injecting air in a nasogastric tube is, quote, "utterly bizarre," end quote, and something he'd never heard of before. Presumably, he means he'd never heard of the concept of maliciously trying to blow up the stomach. You wonder how, if he had never heard of it, he could then diagnose it years later, just from reading the notes. Something also worth considering is the prosecuting barrister's closing statement where he says, quote, "Dr. Evans concluded that the reason for baby C's collapse and death was an injection of air into the nasogastric tube," end quote. This mirrors the Court of Appeal, where they list air via nasogastric tube as the attack mechanism. Yet it's contradicted, as mentioned, by Dr. Evans' signed statement, where he says, quote, "None of the babies were killed as a direct result of the injection of air," end quote. I mentioned at the start of the video that Mark McDonald's press conference has been criticised by former Judge Simon Meyerson. There is a more serious response now in the public domain from barrister and legal analyst Tim Owen, where he outlines the nature of the criminal procedure rules which Dr. Evans may have broken.
There are things called the criminal procedure rules, which are, as the title suggests, rules set out which cover all aspects of the criminal law procedure.
A reference to the idea that Dr. Evans may have broken the criminal procedure rules was made at the press conference by Dr. Roger Norwich, a retired consultant paediatrician who is now part of Mark McDonald's team of expert witnesses.
Dr. Evans, he seemed to me to have broken the rules of the criminal procedure rules.
On a related note, Dr. Norwich described at the press conference becoming motivated to get involved in the case after being shocked and disgusted by the opinions Dr. Evans gave at trial.
To defend somebody on the basis of what we regard as absolutely appalling and unsustainable medical evidence.
Though I think it's likely Lucy Letby's defence team are of the opinion Dr. Evans broke a range of rules, legal analyst Tim Owen highlights one of the criminal procedure rules specifically, which if violated may trigger a retrial.
And Rule 36.15 provides a power to reopen the determination of an appeal.
Mr. Owen says there is grounds for an appeal if Dr. Evans changed his mind, though he doesn't comment on how the rules would play out if Dr. Evans accidentally let something slip.
Is that if what Mark McDonald said is true, that it seems to me is very exceptional.
So in conclusion, I'll say that I shall link some of my sources in the description. If you want to more closely scrutinise what Dr. Evans is saying, you can also pause some of the screenshots in this video. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm being overly cynical in the way I'm being suspicious of Dr. Evans' comments. Alternatively, please also let me know if you think Dr. Evans is a charlatan who has been caught out making it up as he goes along.